Seniority, a presentation of the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center. Here's your host, Catherine Winsor.
Hello, I'm Catherine Winsor, and I'll be your host for Seniority, a new show that puts seniors first in St. John's, a show produced by seniors for seniors, and it's being done by the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center. Our goal is to better inform and inspire seniors living in Canada's most eastern city, to share information that maybe you haven't heard, and to help find people, resources, and services that will be of benefit to you and your friends. And also, we hope to have some fun. On this program, we'll be chatting with folks from the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center, Seniors NL, the City of St. John's, and the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association. We'll also get some advice about making a will from Larry Short and discuss the thrill of writing novels from author Helen Escott. The Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center was established in January 2002 and is a provincially incorporated not-for-profit organization and registered charity through the Canadian Revenue Agency. It has an active board of directors, and its day-to-day operations are successful because of volunteers. And joining us now is George Parsons. And George, I'm going to ask you, how would you describe what you do for the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center?
Officially, I guess my title is Program Manager. However, I am the jack of all trades. As it stands now, for example, we're coming through a very complex episode in the life of Jimmy Pratt, and the reality is that I try to monitor, manage, and coordinate their programming. Right now, their financial affairs as it relates to doing their bookkeeping, extra work like receipts, deposits, and so on and so forth. And of course, we are without an administrative person at this particular point in time, so I also answer the telephone, answer emails, in person at the door. So pretty well a little bit of everything to try to keep things above board and as professional as we can.
As I said, the Outreach Center was established in January of 2002. And have you been there since its beginning?
No, I came in April of 2010, so it was already 8 years operating at that particular point in time. We started off with one program, and that was the soup kitchen. And that was the main reason why the Jimmy Pratt Center was started in the first place, to cater to those less fortunate than we'd like to see, and to provide them with some extra opportunity to improve their health and way of life. When
you think back to 2010, what was it that made you feel you wanted to join and be part of this organization?
Well, there was a tremendous amount of potential there to do more than what we were doing with the resources that we had and the soup kitchen itself, the center itself, our actual commercial kitchen, and of course our dining room. And it was all pretty well new. It was, certainly eye-appealing and had so much potential there. And one of the biggest issues was the seniors group, for example, who used to meet kind of ad hoc. They had no particular program that they could go to on a regular basis, like a weekly basis. So what we did is we did a little bit of investigation. We did some surveys within the seniors population in the area. And it was decided that we should try to operate or organize a seniors program, which we did. And it was called the Seniors Inclusion Program because that was the main objective, to give seniors an opportunity to be included in social interaction and been able to been able to meet on a regular basis and do things that they probably ordinarily wouldn't be able to do.
And that's held on Wednesdays?
That's Wednesdays, yeah. That's Wednesdays. It goes from about 10 a.m. When our volunteers come in. And again, that program is run totally by volunteers with one part-time employee of about 4 or 5 hours a week. So yes, it is Wednesdays. It starts off with a seniors fitness. We have a senior who acts as their fitness instructor. It's mainly balance and stretch exercise, and it's an opportunity again to learn some exercises that you can actually do home with the support of a chair or sitting in a chair or whatever. That then goes to lunch. Once a month we have a guest speaker. It may be somebody from the RNC talking about scams, or it could be somebody from Eastern Health talking about some opportunities for seniors to avail of with respect to some programs that they manage and operate. Following that, they have a hour and a half to 2 hour recreation program whereby they can do puzzles, they can play cards, different types of cards, or just sit around and chat. And we have, say, one table, for example, they may be doing bridge, while another table could be doing 120 or auction or whatever. Right.
So it's a great social time as well.
Absolutely, and every special occasion, we have entertainment come in and they enjoy themselves. They have probably a special meal that day, and then in that seniors program, for example, we've been operating an OWLS program, which is older workers' lifelong skills, and they train seniors. So we have seniors training seniors. There are some other programs that we have on the horizon, like a seniors resizing cooperative for groceries that would prevent wastage. It would would ensure that some of the deals that are at the supermarkets and so on that are in bulk can be broken down into smaller units for seniors who are living alone or just a couple and so on. So again, we do things based on what we see as needs. We generally get into surveys to find out what the needs are, and then we look at the assets or what we'll need to be able to do those successfully.
So, George, can you tell us about the important role that your corporate sponsors play in the running of the centre?
Our sponsors, similar to our volunteers, it's a hand-in-glove partnership. We have several long-term sponsors. That's sponsors that would provide both financial and human resource support as volunteers on a yearly basis, and they would actually send down some of their staff on a weekly basis and a rotation basis, and that, coupled with the financial support that they provide, allows us to plan and to project into the future. Whereas without those corporate sponsors, we could have all the volunteers we like, but it would still cost money. And everybody knows with the increased cost of everything these days, that we depend on them. We also have sponsors that might sponsor, for example, for year-round, but we also have sponsors that would actually maybe do once a month or once every second month, and the same approach. They would provide the volunteers to work with our volunteer teams, and they would provide financial support again to help us be able to operate in the way that we know we need to operate and want to operate. So over and above Synovus, for example, and the Delta, we have Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. We have CIBC Wood Gundy. They come, for example, every second month and so on. And in addition to that, we have sponsors that may only come once a year, and some of those would be like Verifin, for example. In addition to Virafin, we have Fortis, for example, that will come in. Again, the retired RCMP group usually comes in 3 or 4 times a year. And again, not only does it help us financially, it certainly provides us with a good core of volunteers that can put a different spin on things, and everybody seemed to enjoy not only volunteering, but the patrons look at the Jimmy Pratt Centre as a family, which is amazing.
And I guess we should say the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Centre is located on George Street and downstairs of the George Street United Church. And as for now, that's where the location will be, and it will continue to operate from there.
We're hoping to. We're certainly hoping to be able to remain in that location.
We will continue this conversation on the next episode of Seniority. And joining us now on Seniority is St. John's City Councillor Jill Bruce. Jill, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
So let's start by asking you to tell us a little about yourself and the role you play at the City of St. John's as it relates to the seniors.
So, again, my name is Jill Bruce. I'm a councillor with the City of St. John's for Ward 1, which is an East End ward. I was elected about 2.5 years ago. It's my first term on council. So I've had many different roles since I've been on council with advisory committees and that sort of thing. But right now, every 2 years we switch our portfolio. So this, for the remainder of my term, the last 2 years, I've taken on the Seniors Advisory Committee as one of my roles. And I did it over the summer. I filled in for somebody who was off for a little bit and really enjoyed it. So I put my name in the hat for this one, for this term. Yeah.
So how would you say that your background has helped you for this role at City Hall?
Well, I have, my parents are seniors here in the city. My in-laws are seniors as well. They're not in the city, but just outside the city. And we have a high percentage, as you probably know, of seniors living in the city. And I've been told that my ward, Ward 1, has one of the highest percentages of seniors in the city as well. So the majority of the phone calls and the emails that I get on a daily basis are from seniors. So I do have quite a bit of experience in the issues that seniors are dealing with and what's important to them, I think.
And if people do call, they can get directly to you to ask questions?
Absolutely.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah, so as a municipal councillor, we're kind of the ground level, I would say, of government. So if they call my number, they may get a voicemail, but they'll get a call back within a day. Usually it's within a couple hours.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Or an email, yeah. Sure.
So would you say the city is concerned about the quality of life for the seniors in St. John's?
Absolutely. As I said, it's such a high percentage of our population, our demographic, and we have programs that we try to have programs that are available and of interest to every demographic, but especially our seniors. They're very, very important to us as a city. We want to not only put programs out there that we think they're interested in, but we enjoy getting their feedback. And sometimes, it's a hit or miss. Sometimes programs go off really well. For the majority of our programs, we have very, very high turnout. We usually have a wait list, actually, for most of our programs, which is really great to see.
Yeah, I know my mom, when she was living in a senior's apartment setting, a lot of the residents there took part in some of the dances or the social events, and it was a huge thing. And the excitement I used to find before they'd be going would be wonderful to see. And I used to think, what a great, until you know that it's out there or you experience it, you don't realize what a great service those things are. Absolutely. What are some of the programs now that the city provides?
So we've got so many. I've actually partaken in a couple of them since I've been on the advisory committee, and they're just the best time. So we had a bingo event. So there's usually a meal served with all these events. We had a bingo event, which is very, very serious. You don't talk during bingo, I've realized. I'm not a bingo player, but I know the rules now. I've learned really quickly. This is very, very serious. And we had recently also, so we have kind of our holiday dinner and dance. So Christmas was our last one. Oh my gracious, it was so much fun. And the seniors, they loved to dance and they had so much fun. And I think what I noticed the most in going to these events is that not only is it a place where seniors can come together and meet new people, and a lot of them know each other from, like you said, from particular homes and things like that, but also they think of our staff as extended family. And the relationships that they have built with our staff are absolutely amazing and heartwarming. And we've just got absolutely the best staff.
Yes, that's wonderful. And especially for some seniors who don't have the family connections. And it must be lonely at certain times of the year if they don't have a connection. Like Christmas, that would have been a very big event for a lot of people, I would think.
For
to
sure.
Be able to attend, dress up and go.
It is. And not only do we have these big events where, we do provide bus service to a lot of the particular places, but we've also got just our normal programs that we put off different seasons. So we have the city guide that goes out quarterly, and I will tell people, just take a look at it when it comes in the mailbox, because it's easy just to kind of put it aside, and some people use it for just their garbage pickup and things, but it has some really great information when it comes to the program. So we have painting classes, and we have activity classes, and we have physical activity classes, like a fall prevention class, which just helps with stability and flexibility and that sort of thing.
Which is probably a very serious thing for seniors. It was my mom's. It was always her fear, falling to break a hip. Yeah. So that's a really great service. Who'd have thought not to fall is this
right.
program.
And I think we could all take advantage of something like that, right? Yes. Especially when our winters seem to be so long and and slippery. So yeah.
I noticed you spent a lot of time with the school system, and of course I'm a retired teacher, but I noticed, the fun of young people is important, and now you're working at the other end of the spectrum, where you see about activity and community. It's just as important, and I think seniors have a way of having fun when they're together, and sometimes I think people forget that the fun is still important.
And I think, sorry, not to cut you off.
Just okay.
I think it's worth mentioning too. I'm a resident of Airport Heights, and so we've got a great elementary community school there where my boys both went, and I volunteer there still regularly. And maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we had a seniors facility built next door. And talking about relationships and working on both ends of it, the relationships that the school has built with the seniors complex and how they interact, and they've formed an adopt a grandparent program, and I'm sure it's done all around the city, but it's just it's about building relationships, and that's kind of where we go with the city. Like, we want to be able to foster these relationships, and not only to bring, like I said, seniors together in a group, but also a lot of these programs, if you do a painting class, you could be in a class with a teenager, you could be in a class with, a 40-year-old, an 80-year-old. So it's building relationships right across the spectrum, I think, which is really important.
As a teacher, one of the most beautiful things I saw when I taught at Topsail Elementary, our librarian, or the resource teacher there, she brought in seniors of veterans. And this was when first computers were coming out. And I walked into the library this day, and to see a child with their hand on a senior's hand moving the mouse, I thought, now this is something special. And those connections were kept. So when the children graduated or left grade 6, a lot of their veteran came, or they'd come back and teach the children chess or something like that. But those connections, I think, are wonderful. And it's a natural connection, isn't it?
It really is a natural connection. And it's not just what the young people can teach the seniors. It's what the seniors teach. Yes. Like these I think when you put seniors and you put young people together, it naturally evolves, right? That's how I learned to knit. My grandmother taught me. So if you don't have a grandparent maybe close by, or it's a great way to form these relationships and skills, right?
We will continue this conversation on the next episode of Seniority. With us now on Seniority via Zoom is Elizabeth Siegel, Director of Information and Referral Services at Seniors NL. So Elizabeth, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today on Seniority. And perhaps you could start by telling us a little bit about what you do at Seniors NL.
Happy to do that. So first of all, for people who don't know, Seniors NL is a not-for-profit provincial organization. Our main mandate is to provide information to seniors to help encourage and promote their well-being and independence. So one of the main ways we do that is we do have an information line for seniors, and it's answered by peer support volunteers, so seniors helping seniors, and we help connect seniors to resources and services across the province.
And what's the number then that people would phone to get that?
So we do have a toll-free number. It's 1-800-563-5599, and we're open from 8:30 to 4:30 Monday to Friday.
Now, what kind of inquiries do you get from seniors?
Truly, probably about everything. We get close to 5,000 inquiries a year. It is from seniors across the province and also people who support them, so family members, service providers. And it can range from anything from how do I stay at my home? How do I get home support? I might need help getting a will made. Elder abuse, we get calls about elder abuse. Federal pensions and benefits. So really anything that people need will help direct them to. And I will say a lot of the people who call us do not have the internet. So you can imagine how difficult it is to navigate without the internet these days. So we're very happy to do whatever it takes to help someone connect with a service.
Definitely. And are there services that you think seniors may not even be aware of that they can be connected to through you?
Absolutely. So we actually have a database that our volunteers use and can pull up as people are looking for services. And we have over 1,000 services available to seniors. Some of them are federal, some of them are provincial, some of them are municipal or a not-for-profit organization. We also have things like lists of people who do snow clearing or foot care. So variety of different needs. But for instance, I'll give you a couple good examples. There's something called the Public Legal Information Association of Newfoundland and Labrador, provincial organization that gives free legal information out and information on how to do a will and that sort of thing. A lot of people don't know they exist. A really good resource. There's also a friendly calling program that Red Cross does across the province if someone knows a senior who would like to make some connection and is feeling a bit isolated. So things that you might not even have thought of are out there. You just have to call us and tell us what your need is, and then we'll see what we can connect you with.
So, Elizabeth, you did mention briefly of elder abuse, and I wondered what Seniors NL offers seniors who are dealing with this, and if you could explain what elder abuse is.
Well, elder abuse really is any act or failure to act that harms an older adult. It can include anything from financial abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, neglect. There are some places that people can get help, and one of them is the Adult Protection Line. So quite often we refer people there. Now that is for seniors who don't have the capacity to understand or appreciate the risk of their situation. So say a senior perhaps with dementia or something. For seniors who do have capacity, we might refer them to counseling. It might be a matter of helping them finding a new place to live or needing legal advice. I will say, though, quite often we get calls from not the senior themselves, but family members who are concerned about them.
And I was going to ask that, like if somebody is concerned or feels that somebody is experiencing elder abuse, they can contact you, I guess.
Absolutely. And actually, if it isn't a case where a senior doesn't have the capacity to understand what's happening to them, it is actually mandatory under law to report that. Right. So that's important to know, and you can report confidentially. But in other cases, like I said, very happy for people to call us and we can discuss other resources that are available.
Abuse is not an easy topic for a lot of people to discuss. So if someone had to talk about it or is experiencing elder abuse, is there a place that they can be referred to get support?
Well, again, they could call us, but I would encourage people, neighbors, family members, if you're concerned about a senior, to actually reach out and ask them. I don't think you have to say, I think you're being abused, I'm worried about you. I think it really is just a matter of checking in. You might comment on what you notice. Like, I notice you're not taking care of yourself. You're not getting to the doctor, and I'm worried about you. Are you okay? And is there anything I can do? And sometimes that can open up the conversation.
Is there, and I'd like to know, think the answer would be no, but is there an issue of elder abuse here in Newfoundland and Labrador?
It is, I would say, almost every other day we get a call about elder abuse, typically financial abuse. About 2% of our calls are elder abuse. So it's incredible how rampant it is. And again, especially financial abuse and verbal abuse, but people don't like to talk about it. So yeah, definitely reach out to someone if you're worried about what's happening with them.
Is there hope for people who are experiencing this? Like, do you see positive outcomes?
Absolutely. Typically it's a journey though. If it's something that the adult protection is getting involved with, they have the ability to remove someone from the situation fairly quickly. But for other people, it might be deciding when they're ready to make a move, talking to a counselor. It might be getting legal help. Typically doesn't resolve immediately, but absolutely over time, you can resolve it and be in a better place.
We will continue this conversation on the next episode of Seniority. Joining us now on Seniority is financial expert Larry Short. So Larry, for those in our audience who may not know you, would you mind introducing yourself and tell us about what you do?
I've been an investment advisor for 34 years. I've worked with firms such as RBC Dominion Securities and TD Waterhouse, where I was a vice president at both firms before stepping out to establish Short Financial. Short Financial is a group of partners based in St. John's, Newfoundland, and has offices in Toronto as well, with some partners there. So for 34 years, I've been doing investment advice. I'm a CPA, Chartered Professional Accountant, and recently co-author of this book about estate planning, writing your will, etc., which is what I think we're having a chat about here today.
Thank you, Larry. So I guess today we want to start the conversation about the importance of having a will, because I guess, and that's a huge part of the last act, I'm sure. So Larry, perhaps you could begin by telling us exactly what is a will.
So a will is a legal document that distributes your investments, your house, your possessions. Could be jewelry, could be a cabin, could be a cottage, could be car, whatever your stuff is after you die. So you've accumulated all this stuff in your life. Who gets it after you pass away? And that's what what a will is supposed to do.
So Larry, would you understand why people wouldn't want to write a will?
So some people believe that if they write a will, they're getting ready to die. So we point out to them that, in fact, you already have a will. There's nobody in this country that doesn't have a will. The reason that everybody does have a will is because the provincial governments and territorial governments have written one for you. So if you don't go and alter that will, theirs applies. That means that the rules that the civil servants thought best to put in place are the ones that are going to govern who gets your house and who gets your car and who gets your savings account and your RSP and the like. And in many cases, it may not be what you really intended.
So Larry, what would you say then to people who think that, they don't need a will?
There's already one in existence for you. You should be aware that, many people make assumptions that, of course, the spouse, my wife's going to get this or my husband's going to get this when I pass on. When, for example, in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, if there is a spouse plus, say, 2 children, then the spouse will get a third of your investments, your savings account, and the children are supposed to, the spouse will get 2/3 and your children will get 1/3. Now, if that child is younger than the age of 18, there may need to be a trust set up for them, because you can't have money go to a child younger than the age of 18. Or if they're over 18 and maybe they don't get along with your spouse, because it could be a second spouse, then you could cause a lot of problems. In any event, the key point is that your stuff's going to get distributed, and there's two ways to do it. One is it can be done in an organized fashion that reduces fees and potentially keeps taxes down. Or it can be done in a complicated fashion that means that the people that you love, the people that you care about, your family, maybe some charities, maybe your church, may have to incur a lot of costs and a lot of complication for when you pass on. So obviously we're saying there is a will already in existence. It's best you understand about it, don't make assumptions, and it's best that you change it to make it as simple as possible to give your family time to grieve.
And so is that the role then the provincial government plays in helping people make a will, or just the fact that there is one in existence?
Well, it's not the case that the provincial government helps people make a will. They have a default will there in place.
They have a default will.
If somebody passes away, without writing their own will, then a member of their family or friends or someone along the way applies to be what's called an administrator. In order to do that, they have to pay $1,000 to the government. Then they have to gather up what your assets are, figure out what you've got. They have to find out who the general beneficiaries will be. Are there children involved? Are there cousins involved? Is there a church that was intended? And then from there, they have to get permission from these individuals to act as administrator. Well, you can imagine the kind of conversations that have happened even at the best of times when it comes to a will. So now if you've got to get everybody to agree for you to be administrator, that's going to take an awful lot more work. So again, the reason you write a will is out of love, is that you have a family that you love, you have kids, you've got charities that you care about, you have a community that you care about, and you want to give these people time to mourn and to not complicate their lives. So let's get it cleared up. That's why we call the book The Last Act, the last step that you need to go through to put your house in order, so that if something should happen to you, that there's not the grieving happening at the same time as what do we do here. And particularly when it comes to having a spouse, is that we've seen the division of duties such that sometimes one spouse is taking care of all the finances. And if that person passes away, we've literally had the other spouse come to us and say, I don't know if I have money for groceries. I don't know if rent is being paid. I don't know if the credit cards are being covered. I don't know if the car payment's being made. So let's all take a breath here, recognize there's already a will in existence for you. Maybe we should be looking at making these changes to benefit the people that you love.
So, Larry, we often hear the title of executor when it comes to a will. And I wonder if you can explain what exactly is an executor.
So the executor is the person that you appoint in your will, who will be in charge of gathering your assets together, putting together your income tax return for your final year, and then eventually distributing your assets out to your beneficiaries. So when I said earlier that if you don't have your own will, the government's will is done by an administrator. So that's somebody within the family that steps forward. But in the case of an executor, ahead of time, you name that person in your will. And this is a really, really important job. And it's one that we do not recommend an individual take on if they've never done it before. So just to be clear, we in Short Financial do not want to be executors. So, and we see this every day. So you can imagine that if we don't want the job, then why is it that then anybody else would take the job? And often in our society, people say, you know what, I'm going to get my will done. I needed to find an executor. And then they have Sunday dinner with a member of the family, a bunch of friends, whatever. They turn to someone and they say, would you pass the potatoes? Oh, by the way, would you be my executor? And the person thinks, wow, that's an honor. That's something to be asked. That's something I should be proud of. And they say, well, you know what? I'll get my will done too, and you be my executor. And they don't really understand the role and responsibility of what the executor does. So we spend a lot of time in the book explaining what the executor does. And we recommend that you get a professional executor, somebody who really understands the position, who has the credentials to do the job and has done it in the past to make sure that it's properly done. It's a key individual that has to be named in your will.
Is it a misconception that a will is a private document?
Yes, very much so. So a will is not a private document. You literally can go on a website today and go to Province of Newfoundland government website, Department of Finance, and go under trusts and deeds, and I think it's companies is what's the name of the department. And you can pay $20 to the provincial government credit card, and you can read anybody's will who's passed on in the last 40, 50 years. So what happens as part of the process is that the executor, so you pass away, funeral happens, the executor then starts to do the work. The executor takes your will, brings it to the government through the lawyer usually, and brings it to the Supreme Court through the lawyer, and gets appointed officially as being the executor. So that's called the start of what's something called probate. So in the book, we've really, diminished the jargon as much as possible, but we still have to use some of the terms like probate. So all probate is that it's a stamp on the actual official copy of the will, so that when the executor starts to do things like goes to the bank, it says, my friend has passed away, I am the executor, here is a government stamp certifying that you can talk to me about the private issues involving this particular individual and their banking. So that executor then has authority on the banking, has authority on your RSPs, has authority on your car, authority on speaking with a lawyer about selling your house, distributing, selling your cabin if necessary. So that process then is what the executor does in order to take you all the way through until the estate is settled. And then once everything is settled, there's a second filing that goes back to the government, and in order for a final distribution to be done, and the record of what you had and who got it goes into a document, and that is filed with the provincial and territorial governments. That document is a public document. Now, this, when we first started doing work on this 30 years ago, obviously we all cringe when we hear that your neighbors, your friends, and your enemies and frenemies can see what you had and where it went. So it's almost sounds like you're paying the post office to be able to read your neighbor's mail. That's kind of the reaction. There are certain ways around it, certain means that you can use, but it's a bit, and we touch a little bit on it in the book, in the use of certain kinds of trusts. But in general, once that you start the process of putting your will together, as part of that discussion, we say, talk with your lawyer about what can I do about privacy, if indeed that's something that you'll be concerned about.
We have now Leon Mills, who's the Executive Director of the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association of Newfoundland and Labrador Division, and he's joining us on Seniority now via Zoom. So Leon, welcome, and thanks for doing this.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Glad to be here.
And Leon, what could you tell us a little something about what you do as the executive director of the Canadian Hearing Association?
It's funny you should ask that. One of my staff asked me a while ago, like younger staff, what exactly do you do? And I have a sign on my desk that says, nobody knows what I do until I don't do it, So
Right.
the way I look at it, my job is, I often liken it to being the executive officer on a ship. You're there to support the captain, which is the board, and you liaise with the crew, which is the staff. And my job is to keep everything going and support the board in their work, and support the staff in their work, and try to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our clients and members of the public as efficiently and effectively as possible, and take care of the administrivia, I guess, and keep the paper going and keep all the dots connected, and pay the bills on time and all those kinds of things. So it's a little bit of everything, and I love it, like, because it's a lot of diversity in my job. You're always, 1 minute I could be working on a budget, the next hour I could be doing governance work for the board, next minute I'm doing advocacy work. So there's always something interesting to do and challenging, and that's what keeps it interesting and fresh.
Yeah, well, it certainly does sound interesting and a little bit of everything for you to be involved with, I guess. Leon, you have a very personal story with regards to hearing loss. Would you like to share that?
I was in my fourth year university class one day, and it was 1984, roughly. And Friday afternoon, I was in summer session, a nice hot day, and about 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and I'll never forget it because I was just sitting there listening to my professor, and I noticed he was talking to somebody over there. They respond, and he talked to somebody over there, and they respond. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm not hearing what he's saying, So and just like that, as I was sitting there, I went completely deaf. So after class, of course, I beat it to the online clinic, and they sent me down to the old Janeway, which is down in Pleasantville, and did some tests and came out, and they wrote me a note. He said, you're deaf. And I said, yeah, okay, I know what's going on, like, we'll fix it. And they said, well, we can't fix it. You have a condition called sudden hearing loss syndrome. And basically what happened is a hearing loss that runs in my family. There was a genetic weakness there in my immune system. And then the specialist basically told me, with a very long note, that because you had a compromised immune system, a bug attacked it, and most people would just shrug it off and carry on, no problems. But in your case, it just did the job on you. So, of course, I'm in fourth year studying to be a teacher, where communication is particularly important. And I said to them, well, what's going to happen going forward? And they said, well, here's the deal. In 33% of the cases, your hearing will be fully restored. In 33% of the cases, you'll be deaf forever. And 33% of the cases, you'll get some hearing back, which may be augmented with hearing aids, and you might be able to carry on. So I had to drop out of school. And at the time, I was the proctor down in Burton's Pond, responsible for a house full of young students for 100 people. I couldn't hear what they were doing. So it was interesting, but I had a roommate, and we managed. But I remember a couple of weeks in, it was a Saturday morning, I was reading a book and wondering what's going to happen. And all of a sudden, I realized I could hear some sound, and I realized the TV was on, but I couldn't understand it. So anyway, back to Janeway Monday morning, more tests. They confirmed that hearing aids could be beneficial. So they did the mold impression, and 2 weeks later, I popped them in, and as soon as they turned them on, I could hear again. So it was very emotional for me, of course, and I cried and all that kind of stuff. But because I realized that with the hearing aids I could carry on. So I finished my degree and went and started teaching. And unfortunately, I made it worse because I was a gym teacher and I was in a big noisy box all day. More noise bombarded my ears. Nobody told me I shouldn't have been there. And anyway, after 3 years, I went to the classroom. And after another 4 years, I had to give it up because just the background noise was too much. And the older hearing aids amplified everything. So what you didn't want to hear got amplified loudest, So anyway, I lost my teaching career after 7 years. And here we are, 30 years on, 33 years on. I'm, working with the Hard of Hearing Association because while I was in school doing my master's after that, my audiologist asked me a question that put me on the path where I am. She said, do you know about the support group for people with hearing loss? And I'm like, no, never heard of them. So I said, well, we might want to go down and have a chat with them. So I went down one Friday afternoon. I spent 4 hours, and the founder, Dr. Nora Brown, gave me lots of advice and, sympathetic ear and all support. And she said something to me that guides me to this day. She said, Leon, I know you've had a rough go. She said, but she was British. And she said, but, in my experience, the best way to help yourself is to help others, to take your mind off yourself. So she said, why don't you get involved with us as a volunteer? So I did. And so one thing led to another, and I got a job on a project with them for a year and a half. Then I became the executive director, and 30 years later, here we are.
What an experience for a young guy in university, and you're not even at a rock concert or anything, right? You're just sitting in class. I can't imagine how fearful that must have been.
Yeah, Catherine, just to finish up the thought, what we're talking about, like I am still functionally deaf. Like if I take off my hearing aids, I am functionally deaf. I can't hear anything. So hearing aids are absolute, my lifeline to the hearing world, and a marvel of technology. And of course, they've gotten a lot better over the years. So it has other benefits like Bluetooth now, so I can have this conversation with you via computer or on my phone, and you're just like when you talk to me, it's like you're inside my head. That's the only way I can describe it. It's so good, as opposed to just using the phone where things are at a distance, right? And it's not the same, quality. So
in my teaching, I've had a few students over the years with cochlear implants, and
yes,
that's quite interesting too.
But cochlear implants, again, is a step beyond hearing aids for people where, hearing aids are no longer useful or helpful because their hearing losses progress so severely. And that, again, is another technological marvel that's getting better all the time. So the technology is a wonderful thing for people with hearing loss, for sure.
So, Leon, you mentioned how you were informed about what the services that could be offered at the Hard of Hearing Association. So, where this program is entitled Seniority, what sorts of things are provided there for seniors when it comes to hearing health?
Well, we don't, first thing I want to make clear is that we don't sell hearing aids. So there's no pressure when you come to us. Like some people fear that they go to a hearing aid dealer, they're going to get a pitch to buy a hearing aid, which may or may not happen. But of course, they're in the business of selling hearing aids. That's how they survive. But they want to help you too, But with us, we don't, the only thing we sell is information, and it's free. So you come to us, we provide a lot of information about and advice and supports for the whole hearing process, what causes it, the pros and cons of getting a hearing aid, what's involved in that whole process, the adaptation to the hearing technology and different things like that, So, and we have other assistive technology that can work with the hearing aid, like I mentioned, that goes, on your phone or your television set or your computer, to help you hear in all situations. There's all kinds of things that we offer like that, and we have speech reading classes and information sessions on different topics and webinars and different things like that. So you can do it online. COVID forced us to go online with a lot of our services, which we found was very after initial fear, we found it was very beneficial because we were able to reach more people. And across the island, because we're mostly located in St. John's, and it costs a lot of money to try to send staff around the island to do things. And, we don't have all that much resources. So using this kind of technology allows us to reach out to seniors in the province wherever they are. We can have a Zoom meeting like this with a senior, and you can get the captions on the screen. So even though you don't hear that well, you can read the captions, right? So there's a lot of benefits of using the technology, and we try to use whatever we can to try to connect with people or give them whatever advice and support and help that we can to ensure that they, get more better hearing experience, become more comfortable, more confident, more outgoing. Because as you know, a lot of people with hearing loss, a lot of seniors in particular, because they have hearing loss, they tend to retreat from society, right, from family, friends, or groups that they used to hang out with, church, etc. And there's no need to do that because technology in most cases can help people, So that's what we do in a nutshell. But more people can go on our website and see if they want the information that's available there and different kinds of information. And they can also book an appointment with one of the service staff at a time that's convenient for them. So they can do it all online. So we offer a good bit, I think, in the way of services. Yeah.
Now, people who are losing their hearing or have, major hearing loss. Are there support groups for people who deal with something so traumatic as that?
We did have years ago. Before COVID, we had like a families group for families with children with hearing loss. That sort of petered out a bit as more children got older, and I guess and less children got hearing loss. I suppose, or schools doing a better job of providing support for parents. We did have a cochlear implant support group for people, cochlear implant users for people who were contemplating getting a cochlear implant, or they got it, they still wanted to engage with others with the cochlear implant to share experiences. That sort of petered by the wayside because of COVID. We're moving now to try to sort of revitalize that, I guess, or restart it in some fashion. With work while cooperating with the Janeway, because they do a lot of testing of seniors as well. So we're trying to work together to do something there. And we also had a group called the Tinnitus Menaire Support Group. Tinnitus is that ringing sound people can have and can be very debilitating for some people. And Menaires is a balance issue that's tied to your hearing, So we had a support group at that. And of course, COVID put the kibosh on that as well. And our chairperson that hasn't been well, so I'm not sure where we're going with that at the moment, but that may get revitalized at some point too. But right now, it hasn't been meeting. But like I say, there have been a number of groups, and we may be restarting one or two of those again going forward, but we don't know for sure yet. But other than that, there's still, like I said, lots of individual one-on-one services that people can get as a client. If they wish, either drop in by phone or, through a Zoom meeting or something like that, right?
Well, actually, on that note, could you tell us, for people who would want to get in contact, the phone number or email? Could you give us that now?
Phone number 709-753-3224. And when you connect with the front desk person, Jacqueline, she'll assist you with, whatever you're needing, like give you assistance with making an appointment, or if it's just something simple, she can maybe give you some advice on the phone, or like I said, give you assistance to help you set up the appointment with one of the program services staff, because we don't do drop-in services anymore. It's by appointment only, because it's just the way the scheduling works and people's own schedules, because they have other things to do besides meeting with clients, so there's set times to do it and things like that. And that's why we also have the online booking service. You can go to our website at www.chha-nl.ca. It's a shortened version of our name, and Canadian Hard of Hearing Association, Newfoundland and Labrador. And like I said, there's a place there you can make an online booking for an appointment.
And where is your office? Where are you located?
Oh, we're at, we used to be in St. John's at one point, but about 15 years ago, we decided with the expansion of, out west beyond that, St. John's and Mount Pearl to CBS has grown so much that we wanted to be more centralized with the region. So about 15 years ago, we bought the former Barr's Funeral Home there in Mount Pearl that's on Topsail Road, and we reconverted it into to our office. So we've been there now for about 15 years. So it's 1081 Topsail Road, right on the main drag, and our sign's on the road, so you can't miss it, kind of thing, right?
There's an old saying that there's a novel inside every person. Well, our next guest has had 8 novels in her so far, with more on the way. Helen Escott is an award-winning, best-selling Canadian author and playwright. And Helen, we're glad to have you here today on Seniority. And for those of people who may not know you, would you tell us a little bit about yourself to begin?
Well, thank you, first of all, for inviting me. And I don't know how I ended up on a podcast for seniors. How are we seniors? How are we? There's nothing old about us. We don't let dust. We're the generation of people who just, carry on and do things. We don't know how to sit still, thank goodness. And that's what I'm doing in my retirement is, is I am writing. I worked in the, I was with the RCMP as their communications person for many years, and now I'm a proud veteran. Still involved with the RCMP veterans. And when I retired, I said I would spend the rest of my life doing exactly what I wanted to do. And the first thing I asked myself was, what was your dreams when you were a teenager? And my dream was always to be an author. And I said, well, you know what? You might have 50 years left at the most, so you better get going. So I started writing, and I started writing a novel a year, and I'm still going strong.
Before we get into the series of the books, what made you start writing in the first place? Was it this desire you had from childhood that...
Well, I think, a writer, like a singer, is just, they're born. They're just born.
Yes.
You just have stories that just constantly want to, more come through you than from you. And so I think once you're a writer, you're always a writer. And I always was a writer. And I had worked in the media for 10 years too. So I was, I'd always been very creative. Yeah. And when I retired from the RCMP, I had been diagnosed with PTSD. And it was severe PTSD, and I had to learn to deal with that out in a normal world. And the psychologist at the time I was dealing with was very, very good. And she told me to write down my dreams, because I was having night terrors, and write down my thoughts and write down things. So when I came to visit her, I would have something to talk about. So I would do that and enjoyed the writing part of it, and felt once I wrote it down, it was leaving me. And then I would discuss it with her. And then one day she said, you know what, this is like a book. This is like what you have here is a book, because after about a year, I had a folder, this thick. And she said, this is a book. And I went home and I laid it out on the ground and looked at it and said, you know what, it's a book. And my husband is also, he's a retired police officer from the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary. And I showed it to him, and he said, you know what, it is a book. You need to write this book. This will keep you busy. And so that's where Operation Wormwood came from, was from what was left over from my severe PTSD. All the collateral of that ended up in Operation Wormwood.
Wow, that's incredible to think your experiences anyways ended up, those traumatic experiences ended up being the foundation for books. That's incredible. There's probably a lot of people who've had life experiences that could be the basis for books. A lot are, but to see somebody here locally turn those experiences and to use local places is wonderful. Do you think St. John's provides a lot of stimulation for the stories that you write?
Oh, this is a story with 1,000, this is, is a city with 1,000 stories in it. There's so many great stories. We have such a colorful history, and every one of my books goes back through the history of Newfoundland. It shows you a side of Newfoundland you've never seen before. It's very important to me, actually, to have that there, because I make this province another character in the book. It's not just a backdrop. It's a living, breathing character in every book. And as a matter of fact, in my contract, I even have it said that if these books are ever made into movies, they have to be made in Newfoundland. I don't want this being made in Nova Scotia pretending to be Newfoundland.
Exactly. Well, that's good to know.
Oh yeah, you know what? There's so much colorful stuff in Operation Masonic. I started doing a tour from the Basilica. They tour guides in the ecclesiastic circle in the center of St. John's, which is like the last bit of heritage we have left in the city, because everything's been torn down for a bungalow. And so this is the last piece of our history there, and we have to protect it. And they do an ecclesiastic tour of all the churches in that area. And so I met with them last summer, and we started making it an Operation Masonic ecclesiastic tour. So we go to every one of the churches in that circle, and we look for the Masonic symbols and all these wonderful things. So the book now has become a tour, and the tour has over 80 or 90 people on it every time it goes. People just love our history.
We will continue this conversation on the next episode of Seniority. Seniority, a presentation of the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center. You can reach us at our website, jimmyprattcenter.ca. Email contact@jimmyprattcenter.ca or call 709 726-8781. Seniority Technical Operations are by Peter Elliott, and Seniority is produced by Ray Penton. Thank you for joining us.